Hey BoLS fans, AdamHarry here, back again with another Retro Corner review. Today I want to go over the Inquisitor book. This was a 54mm game designed by GW for the Inquisitor game system, which was part of the grimdark role-playing setting, kind of. So basically, Inquisitor was 54mm. Again, that's basically twice the size and scale of a 40K game. This game played a lot different. You basically had heroes and warbands fighting other heroes and warbands. If you had played in the era, this actually is copyright 2001. It's about 190 pages, but if you'd played during that era, the closest analog to this game would probably be Necromunda. So this was kind of like a large-scale version of that. And again, it's not exactly the same. There's a lot of differences between both games, but that's the closest thing I could think of without looking at other game systems. What makes this game unique was this was kind of an experiment for GW. This was the first time that they really went for big metal models. These were the 54mm. They were solid metal models, and I think that was actually one of the weaknesses of the game. And I'm going to get to that later, but for now I just want to talk about the book. The book itself, pretty cool, like I said. There's a lot of backstory in this book for the universe. This game was basically about the battle for the Emperor's soul. You basically played as an Inquisitor, or had an Inquisitor with his warband, and you would face off against other Inquisitor warbands or mutant warbands or whatever, based on the two players playing each warband, and then also there was a game master who was kind of the ringleader, the one that would come up with the scenario and the story. And they talked quite a bit about it. It was kind of a throwback to the Rogue Trader era with that type of mentality. Lots of backstory, like I was saying. They had different factions of Inquisitors, the Puritan faction for one, or the Zealots and stuff like that, other factions. But this book overall has some really great artwork, a lot of the cool stuff from John Blanche. It is in color, but most of the stuff's in black and white. They did have a couple of sections showcasing the models. I wanted to find that design note from Gav Thorpe here. Actually, this is what I'm talking about here. This is probably one of the early instances of them actually trying to say forging a narrative. What is a narrative war game? You know, what is the game master and how to use this book? This really set the tone for the rest of the book. And, you know, in here they say if your goal is to play in a competitive standpoint, you'll find much of the enjoyment of playing this game will be lost. With Inquisitor, it is possible to make an all-conquering heroes who can't be destroyed. And that's kind of not the point of this game. The point of this game was to have a fun narrative event with friends. It wasn't about competition. You would make stories about your guys. You would modify your models and stuff like that. It was a really great way to combine the hobby aspect with the storytelling, with the gameplay aspect. That's why I really liked Inquisitor. Overall, again, it is basically a three-player game. It's one-on-one with a game master. In this scenario, basically a sample turn, they talk about, you know, there's a character trying to make a jump between a gap, and he fails the roll, and the game master's like that. And Phil Kelly's playing. He's like, that's not very heroic. So the game master's basically, okay, let's say that he made the jump, but as a penalty for failing it, he actually drops his weapon. So that was the type of stuff you would do in the game. It was more thematic, more narrative focused. It wasn't always about just, you know, having Uber characters kill everybody else's Uber characters. It was a more well-rounded. That said, it did have some really cool rules for doing just that and killing cool characters. One of the things I do want to call out, there's lots of throwback artwork to the Cal Jericho stories. Just cool stuff all the way around. So a lot of John Blanche artwork in there as well. So I'm going to go through the characteristics real quick. If you're familiar with 40K at all, or the Warhammer 40K role-playing game, a lot of the stuff is going to be very familiar to you. So basically you have a weapon skill, bullet skill, strength, toughness, and initiative. That's all pretty familiar. Some new stats, you actually had willpower. You had, where's it at? Nerve, leadership, and sagacity. You know, this is your intelligence, education, powers of problem solving. So yeah, it's your intelligence score basically. I don't know if I'm even saying that word right. Anyway, but all that stuff is very familiar. You can see this kind of stat line throughout the 40K role-playing game and Warhammer role-playing game as well. It's very similar. The ideas there are kind of started in this whole book. So turn sequence, they go through all that. Just different things, action rolls, risky actions, drawing, charging weapons, combined arms. The turn sequence is pretty straightforward as well. You declare your actions, and then you make rolls, number of d6 equal to the character speed value. Each score of 4 or more means the character's declared actions may be performed in the order they were declared. So you kind of do, I'm going to run, I'm going to shoot, I'm going to jump, and then I'm going to take cover. And you roll dice to see if you actually were able to pull all that stuff off. So movements, facing and stance were kind of important. Movement rates, all that fun stuff. I want to go back over the basic. Wanted to get to the items and stuff, but shooting. There was one. That's a CPU fan, by the way, folks. That's what I liked about the scale of this game. Overall, like I said, fun game. Range modifiers. Or I wanted to find the cover picture because I thought that was really cool. This game would be really fun in a group. Actually, if you wanted to do some combat type stuff, for instance, if you're doing an RPG style game, narrative game, and you wanted to have a different rule set, maybe you were tired of D&D, or you don't like the 40K role-playing game as much, or you want to try something else, this actually has a pretty solid rule set for doing a lot of that stuff. It's a little dated now, and it definitely needs some tweaks, but I like this cover locations chart. It talks about basically if you're in cover, you're harder to hit, but if you're shooting from cover or you're exposed in cover, the parts that are exposed are actually what's going to get hit. So if you had your head peeking over a ledge and you got hit, guess what? You weren't getting shot in the leg, you were going to get shot in the head. So something to take note here. Talks about hit location and stuff like that. Again, a lot of this stuff is very similar to the Warhammer 40K RPG. But basically, I'm going to skip ahead quite a bit. They gave you examples of the different characters and stuff like that in the game. Rogue traders, cultists and fanatics, Adeptus Mechanicus characters, Death Watch guys, Space Marine characteristics, all these cool stuff. This game was actually a lot of fun. I didn't get too many games under my belt because the models were metal. And so at this point I want to kind of talk about some of the failures of this game and some of the cool stuff. Cool stuff, I'm going to start off with the cinematic poses of this game, and the models were all really cool. The game, the storytelling you could have engaged in this game was also really cool. It's just, you're immersed in the world, you're playing with models that were, 3 to 5 inches tall in some cases. It was just a lot of fun. Like, it was very thematic, it looked very cinematic as well. It just, the amount of detail. I had an Artemis model, and man, I love this model. It was really cool. Just all the detail. You could see all the bolter shells and all the crazy artwork. I had this Inquisitor Covenant as well, and the side cannon on his shoulder and the shotgun on his back and stuff like that. It was just all the detail that you had in there was really cool. But that said, some of the downsides about this game were the fact that these models were all metal, and again, they're heavy, they're big, 3 to 5 inch models. This game kind of wanted you to customize your warband and do a lot of crazy cool conversions and all that stuff, which was awesome. The downside was converting big giant metal models was not easy. You had to really have some green stuff skills. It just didn't work. That said, what I did find that works really well with this game is just convert everything down to the 28mm scale. So you can see here, these Death Cult Assassins are basically the exact same models that we have for Death Cult Assassins now. There's no reason you can't play Inquisitor at a 28mm scale and just convert everything over. It works. It works really well, actually. So, coming up with the characters, and the core mechanics still work. And at that scale, you can then do stuff like the crazy conversions that they talked about, and customizing your warband specifically for what equipment you have on it. Because it was actually a lot of fun to just buy a box of guardsmen and try to convert dudes out of them and do all this crazy stuff. Because here's what I'm talking about. The crazy conversions you could do, like, they had a lot of orc claws. For instance, that's a Ghazghkull arm, I believe. But you're not going to buy a Ghazghkull model, the metal one, back in the day, that was like 30 or 40 bucks, and also one of these, and then only use a half of them. So, you know, it was such a cool system, and I really wish, like, that's Demon Prince wings and stuff like that on the model. This was really back before you could order a lot of that stuff online, and that's kind of changed with the bits business going away. So, I mean, the Power Claw, a lot of orky conversions. It was hard to find stuff in the scale. That's a Warhammer Giant. It was hard to find stuff in the scale of the game to convert. So that was one of the big faults of this game. Like, if they had done these models in plastic, holy crap. Can you imagine having a freaking Terminator or a Space Marine that's 3 to 5 inches plastic, and it comes with, like, you know, all the different head swaps, conversions you can go for, basically a tack box, but at 54mm scale? That would be a lot of fun to build and paint and play with, man. Like, that would have been the way to go. But you just couldn't do it. It was a different scale from 40K. It was different from their bread and butter games. So that said, it was still really cool, and just flipping through this book brings back a lot of memories. Just all the the tips for the game mastering, stuff like that. It was fun times, writing scenarios, but just all the fun, all the potential there. This game was really just missed opportunities, man. This could have been another big flagship game. Yeah. But that's pretty much it for this review. I'm getting a little nostalgia, teary-eyed here. This part was really funny to me. This was a design note from Gabthorpe. So I'm just going to read this part right here. For years, successive designers and developers have honed each edition of Warhammer and Warhammer 40,000 to a razor's edge, forever striving toward that holy grail of game design, game balance. With Inquisitor, we decided not to bother with any of that at all. Does that sound familiar? They were trying to go for game balance, and they threw it out the window for this game because they wanted to forge the narrative. Kind of makes you wonder where they went with that idea. Anyway, that's a really quick rundown of the Inquisitor game. If you haven't picked it up, or if you've ever been interested, you can probably find these half-price books or something like that. Really cheap. Pick it up, read through it, and play the game with 28mm models. I promise you, it's a lot more fun than trying to find the big metal guys, and you'll probably get more people interested in it. If you've ever liked Necromunda or Mordheim and wanted to play a slightly different scale game, a skirmish game, Inquisitor's your game. Check it out. This is AdamHarry with another Retro Corner from BoLS. Hope you enjoyed it. Questions, comments below. Give us a like, subscribe. Hit us up on the lounge if you have any comments. Again, AdamHarry from BoLS signing off. Have a good one.